Sunday afternoon in the summer of 1955, Billie Holiday stood spellbound, watching and listening to a television film of Pablo Casals playing Bach. The great Spanish cellist, living in a self-imposed exile in the tiny French villa of Prades, couldn't have asked for a better audience than Billie. When it was over, an American girl cellist began an interview with the master by exclaiming, "Every time you play it, it's different." "It must be different," said Casals. "How can it be otherwise? Nature is so, and we are nature." Billie exploded with a string of expletives that added up to a uniquely heartfelt amen. "You can't even be like you once were yourself, let alone like somebody else," she added. "You can't copy anybody and end up with anything. If you copy, it means you're working without any feeling. Without feeling, whatever you do amounts to nothing. No two people on earth are alike. It's got to be that way in music, or it isn't music. I can't sing the same song the same way 2 nights in succession, let alone 2 years or 10 years. If you can, then it ain't music. It's calisthenics, exercise, yodeling, or something, not music." Billie fought most of her life to be able to sing what she wanted to sing, the way she wanted to sing it. She loved the records in this album because they come so close to the attainment of that ideal. Here are her own songs, the songs of others that had something to do with her, lyrics that tracked the rugged path of her life. "When I was 13, Billie confessed in her autobiography, I got real evil one day and just plain decided I wasn't going to say anything or do anything unless I meant it. Not please, sir, not thank you, ma'am, nothing unless I meant it. You have to be poor and black to know how many times you get knocked in the head just for trying to do something as simple as that. But I never gave up trying. To thine own self be true." In a Baltimore ghetto translation, this is the cue to the genius, the tragedy and the triumph of Billie Holiday. For 30 more years, she raged through life, blazing a trail of truth through the Barnum and Bailey world of show business and the sham that slogs out split-level society. Truth was her habit, heroin only a part-time crutch. If you didn't know that before you met her, you found out by getting bruised, blinded, or burned. Her reverence for truth and her unique ability to communicate it to others made her a menace to what passes currently for art and culture. Her simple rendition of Porgy packs more wallet than many a full-length performance of the Gershwin opera. "If I were Sammy Goldwyn," a movie producer told Billie when the movie version of Porgy and Bess went into production, "I would buy up your master of Porgy and have it destroyed." The eroticism, catharsis that Billie brings to no more inevitably makes Nellie Forbush's hymn, "I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair," seem like an idle patter of a dame changing hairdressers. Billie was born Lorna Fagan, April 7th, 1915, in Baltimore. Her 13-year-old mother, Sadie Fagan, was his beautiful brown-skinned slaves on the other. Hers was a rebellious, fighting Irish spirit, imprisoned in a skin unfashionably brown. Billy was a great beauty. She never felt inferior to anyone, and could learn to act as if she did. Born out of wedlock, she wore the colors of love. She wore the colors of a love child proudly, without shame. Her 15-year-old father, Clarence Holday, was a musician. When he became a guitarist in Fletcher Henderson's band and hit the road, Baltimore became a one-night stand for him. Her mother was a maid for a white family. She took care of white children 15 hours a day in order to buy bread and shelter for her own baby. Virtually the only horror Billy was spared as a child was a formal education. The only horror she got as far as the 5th grade in Baltimore segregated schools. Then she joined her mother in New York, where Negro maids got slightly better pay. In the depths of the Depression in Harlem, there were 2 ways to eat, Billy found. You could be a maid or a call girl. Billy tried both, with disastrous results. When her mother fell ill and they were about to be disposed, Billy canvassed Harlem speakeasies, looking for a job as a hoofer. Her dancing was so pitiful. An embarrassed piano player at Pod's and Jerry's asked, "Girl, can you sing?" "Sure," Billy replied. She had been singing for years, enjoying it too much to believe that there was any money in it. Billy asked the piano player to try Traveling All Alone, which came closer to anything to the way I felt. She sang, and singing was never the same again. By the time she found fame and fortune as a jazz singer, Billy was emotionally exhausted, spent. At an age when other kids were picking out graduation dresses, Billy's fortune was already behind her. Fame magnified the outrages that befell her. As a singer with Count Basie's band, her skin was too light. She had to be darkened down with heavy grease paint, so the show could go to Detroit. On tour as the first Negro vocalist with a white group, Artie Shaw's aggregation, it got to the point where I hardly ever ate, slept, or went to the bathroom without having a major NAACP type production. The Shaw Band brought her to national attention, but she couldn't take the shoving from radio networks and hotel ballrooms that Jim Crow, New York. Doesn't make sense. She quit again and went back to Harlem. All the adulation of celebrities at Cafe Society in Greenwich Village or the 52nd Street couldn't guarantee she could get a cab at 4 a.m. alone in the street, or order a drink in a bar without having to fight it out of some KKK barfly. All the money she made couldn't get her an apartment in Midtown Manhattan. On stage, she was a queen. In the street, she was a ghetto subject. Then, one fateful day, she tried heroin. It gave her absolution from the past, insulation from the present, and postponement from the future. It also began 15 years of conflict with the law. The United States of America versus Billie Holiday was an unending saga of arrests, trials, jailings that dogged her until the night she died. G.K. Chesterton might have been talking about this willful, stubborn, magnificent woman when he wrote The Irish Spirit. When one is oppressed, it is a mark of chivalry to hurt oneself in order to hurt the oppressor. Billy hurt herself all right, but no one can read the transcripts of her various trials without wondering which adversary dealt itself the more deadly blows. Some people found it hard to believe, but Billy rarely, if ever, talked about music, or if some serious folks called it her art. She poured her whole life into it. She attained worldwide acclaim as the greatest jazz singer of all time. That is, as far as she was concerned. That, as far as she was concerned, was that. Them there eyes. There were a lot of great things about the Basie Band. The experts were just beginning to pick it to pieces after about 20 years to find out what made it so great. I still say the greatest thing was they never used a piece of music. Still, all 16 of them could end up sounding like one great big wonderful sound. That old devil called love. I've been told that nobody sings the word hunger like I do, or the word love. Maybe I remember what those words are all about. Maybe I'm proud enough to want to remember Baltimore and Welfare Island, the Catholic institution in Jefferson Market Court, the sheriff in front of our place in Harlem, and the towns from coast to coast where I got my lumps and scars, Philly and Alderson, Hollywood and San Francisco, every damn bit of it. Easy living. After each crisis on the road with the Basie Band, we'd end up back in New York. There'd be a big strategy meeting, figuring out what was wrong. I was accused of romancing everyone in the band, and this was leading to dissension. This was a damn lie, and I said so. I wasn't doing anything with anybody in the band except one cat, and not very often with him. You're my thrill. It wasn't until I fell in love, but good and hard for the first time, that I knew what had gone on before. It was nothing but fooling around. Sure, he was a musician too. He played piano, great piano. He played for me for a while. He was almost old enough to be my father, and he was married, had 2 or 3 kids.
Australia speaking. Yes, sir.
Lover man. My great-grandma said,
Good.
my great-grandma had seen the Civil War right outside the windows of her little house on the backside of a Virginia plantation. People like her knew what the war was all about. But most of them were dead in 1942. The rest of us, what the hell did we know? Parades, war bonds, rallies, USO tours, ration books, and letters with weird postmarks. They were far from being the real thing. I don't know how many miles I traveled singing to the troops during those days, by train, plane, even our own white bus. Every time I looked around, Joe Guy had me flying somewhere for a show, soldier audiences were so great they spoiled you for the spoiled audiences back home. Give me a pig foot and a bottle of beer. Alice Dean used to keep a whorehouse in the corner near our house in Baltimore, and I used to run errands for her and the girls. I was very commercial in those days. I'd never go to the store for anybody for less than a nickel or a dime.
Good morning. Today should be a rather interesting day. Somewhat of a change of pace